wanted to share with you a little project that I'm working on on this Ferrari that I'm putting together. It's a 330 GTC, and they have these stainless steel trim pieces that go down at the bottom of the rocker. And these pieces are secured with these special blind fasteners. There's a hole in the rocker that this goes into. But when I pulled it originally off the car when it was needed to be painted, the other ones rotted. They were just rusted away and fell and crumbled. There's also these special little spring clips that are in here that were also rusty. They're these spring steel little clamps. So what I did was I ordered a whole kit that it's the same. Alphas use the same thing, so I was able to get these clips. And Alfa Romeos from that era. I'm not sure exactly what car they had, but they used the same exact clip, had a similar molding, must have had the similar molding. And basically you buy the clips, and then you trim them to fit so they slide, because they slide. You can see these slide a little bit back and forth, and you have to kind of feed them in on the very end of it and then slide them into place, and then they clip onto the this piece of sheet metal on the fender, or rather on the rocker. But what also came in this kit were these blind nuts or these blind fasteners that fit here. When I first got them, I'm like, okay, well, they're not exactly like the original ones, but I could figure it out and try to put them in. But when I went to put them on the car, they were too far out. In other words, where they would slide in to here, they would, if you needed them to line up with the hole, they would be too far out, and then what would happen is they wouldn't grab. So they're nice, they look nice, but I had to fabricate new ones because those weren't going to work. So what do you do? Do you add a piece of metal to that and weld it on there and try to make that longer? Because these are kind of nice with the flush cut piece. But instead, what I ended up doing was I ended up fabricating one of these things just from sheet metal and a bolt, and welded it on to the back, and then try to grind it as flush as possible. That's kind of what I came up with. And now what will happen is when you slide it in here, you can just get it in to the place, and then that way you have plenty of room to get that thing in there. But I got to make 3 of them, because the one that I have here is still good, but missing the other 3, because the other 3 rotted out. So that's like one of those things that you when you're putting these cars together and you want to do it right, it just takes a ton of time. You gotta fabricate these things. You gotta cut the metal out. You gotta weld it. You gotta grind it. You gotta get it all fitted in there. You gotta get them just the right width, because if they're too wide, they won't slide in there. If they're too long, they won't slide in there. If they're if the bolt is still protruding off the back, they won't slide in there. So it's a lot of little fiddly little fabrication stuff, and that's kind of what happens when you put these cars together. It's just a ton of time. It never bolts together 100%. It doesn't just go together. It's always some kind of fiddling and fussing around with it. And then on top of it, these things are stainless, so you have to sand them and polish them. So I got them pretty good. They're shiny enough. You can get them to the point where they're super mirror shine. That's just way more hours, and you can do it. But I got all the little micro scratches out of it that makes it look a little bit better, and polished them up, and they look a lot better when they first came off the car. But again, has to be done. You have to wet sand it. You gotta use sandpaper and water and all that other stuff, and go up higher and higher, and then polish them finally on a buffing wheel. So just putting these little rocker pieces on takes a lot of time, but we're getting there. Car's gonna look good when it's done, but I tell you, it's always hours. So before installing these pieces that I made, I got to get these holes. I got to open up these holes that are in the rockers just a little bit, just so that I could fit the studs in there. Being careful to only push in. Don't want to catch the paint on the way out, because that would be a big problem. There's always a little bit of filler that goes in these holes in paint, so you just gotta open it up just a little bit. There it goes. And I'm going to do the back ones. So normally I would tape all this stuff up, but the problem I have is that sometimes the tape will get caught in place and then I can't take the tape off. So it's almost like it's better to leave the tape off and just be really careful about lining everything up and not scratching everything. I mean, everything kind of sits just enough off that it should stay without touching anything until I actually push it all in. So what I'm going to do is just thread a nut on here just to hold it in place. And then I'm going to come down here, make sure these clips are lined up where I want them to be. Just see them in there, just the teeth are just about to grab on there. Start this one in here. All right, so then, sorry about the heat, the noise of the heat, but I want to make sure that this distance here matches the distance over here. Looks pretty good. Kind of have to eyeball it. And what I'm going to do is going to get some tape, and I'm going to cover these the strips up here, so as I tap it in, it doesn't scratch up the stainless. Tape also gives me a better idea where the clip is, so I can actually just use a mallet and drive those barbs onto the trim. Tighten this up a little bit more so it doesn't bounce and scratch up the paint. Work around you guys so I don't block your view. I don't know if you can see, but this trim actually bows from the bodywork. The bodywork actually comes out and goes in on the rocker. So you really need to have the screws to pull that pull those trim piece closer to the bodywork on the ends than what it does on the center. Center holds well with clips, and then the rest of it is held in place with the threaded studs. So just wipe that down. And that's installed.